The streets of New York City glowed under the gentle blanket of winter snow, every flake drifting like a quiet whisper from the sky. It was the kind of evening that felt pulled out of a painting, the air crisp, lights twinkling from shop windows, and the hum of carolers echoing down the avenues. In the heart of Manhattan, nestled between a bakery and a small antique shop, stood a bookshop that most people walked past without even noticing. Its sign read in golden letters, "The Willow Bookstore." Inside, the shop felt like stepping into another world. The scent of aged paper and cinnamon candles filled the air. Rows of shelves stretched like labyrinths, filled with stories waiting to be discovered. It was the kind of place where time slowed down, where the outside noise faded, and where people came not just for books, but for the comfort of being surrounded by them. Olivia Bennett, a 26-year-old editor freshly moved from San Francisco, pushed the door open one snowy Friday evening. She had come to New York chasing her dream of working for a renowned publishing house, but the city hadn't been kind to her yet. Her days were long, her apartment was too small, and the loneliness of starting over in a new city weighed on her heart. She missed the warmth of family dinners back home, the sound of waves crashing against the California shore. Yet tonight, as the snow fell heavier, she felt an urge to find refuge somewhere cozy, somewhere far from the rush of taxis and noise. The little bell above the bookstore door chimed softly as she stepped inside, brushing snowflakes from her scarf. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight. Walls of books stacked high, warm golden lights dangling from the ceiling, and a soft jazz tune playing faintly from a corner. She sighed in relief, as though she had stumbled into exactly the place she needed. Olivia wandered between the shelves, trailing her fingers along the spines. She paused in the classics section, tilting her head as she tried to decide which story would keep her company for the weekend. Just then, a voice spoke from behind her. "Looking for something specific, or just letting the books choose you?" Startled, Olivia turned to see a young man standing there with a book in his hand. He had tousled brown hair, a scarf loosely wrapped around his neck, and a warmth in his hazel eyes that immediately softened the sharp edges of her evening. "Oh, I didn't hear you," Olivia said, smiling nervously. He held up the book in his hand. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt." "I just thought you looked like someone who enjoys letting stories find her instead of the other way around." Olivia laughed softly. "You guessed right. I usually let the covers or titles decide for me. Not the most professional method, I suppose." "Actually," he said with a grin, "sometimes the best stories find us when we're not looking." There was a quiet pause, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable but rather full of possibility. "I'm Ethan Walker," he said after a moment, extending his hand. "Olivia," she replied, shaking it. "Nice to meet you, Ethan." The name lingered on her tongue as though it already belonged in her story. Ethan tucked the book under his arm. "This place is kind of my hideaway. The city's loud, and this bookstore feels like the one corner where the world slows down." Olivia nodded. "I just discovered it tonight. Honestly, it feels like stepping into another world." Their conversation carried on easily, as though they weren't strangers, but old friends who had simply lost touch. They spoke about their favorite novels, authors who had inspired them, and how both of them loved the quiet magic of bookstores. Ethan confessed that he was an aspiring writer, working on his second manuscript after his first attempt had been rejected. Olivia admitted she was an editor, though still new to the industry. They laughed at the coincidence, though in their hearts, neither believed it was just chance. As the snow piled higher outside, the shopkeeper announced he would be closing soon. Ethan glanced at Olivia, hesitant but hopeful. "There's a coffee shop across the street that stays open late," he said. "Would you maybe like to continue this conversation there?" Olivia hesitated only a second before nodding. "I'd love to." And so they stepped out into the snowy night together, crossing streets lit by glowing lampposts, two figures whose paths had unexpectedly collided. Over the next few weeks, Olivia and Ethan found themselves meeting often, sometimes by accident, sometimes by design. They would both end up at the Willow Bookstore after work, drawn not just to the shelves but to each other. Ethan would show Olivia pieces of his writing, hesitant at first, but gradually trusting her with words that were raw and unfinished. Olivia, in turn, offered encouragement and gentle advice, helping him shape his stories while finding her own inspiration in his passion. They began exploring the